Hello. Good evening. Welcome again to another live stream broadcast from the folks here at the Morgan Podcasting Network. We're live on Facebook right now. You may be watching us on YouTube later. You may be listening to the podcast. However, you are choosing to spend your time with us here. We greatly appreciate it. My name is Rod Morgan. This is produced by Jimmy Jamriska. Jimmy is with us. If you're watching now, he's up in the left-hand corner, but he is the man who makes all of this happen. Jimmy, hello.
Hello, Rod. Yes, I make all this happen. And let's be honest, everyone really does tune in to get my picks because I am on fire right now.
Oh, Jimmy loves nothing more than letting us know when he is right because it doesn't happen very often. So we'll let Jim ride high right now. Joining us, a Cowboys fan who may be looking off to the side a little bit during the filming of this podcast because his team is playing on Thursday Night Football. He loves the Cowboys. He loves the Colts. He loves life because he's lived a lot of it. He's our old man. It's Chris King. Chris, hello.
Yeah, we should definitely give Jimmy a little bit of reprieve and let him enjoy this because we definitely know. And when it comes to football, Jimmy, your track record is not good. So good job so far.
I said fire, not what kind of fire, Chris.
I'm not sure that his basketball track record is incredibly great either. He will trumpet that he won the wins pool last year.
How dare you?
He won the wins pool, but I'm not sure that his basketball record is that great either. Basketball just around the corner. I'm excited for basketball, but we're excited to do football picks this week with our guy, the handicapper. He's crunching the numbers. He's playing the daily fantasy. He's looking at the parlays. He knows the referees. He knows the rest differential. Is that what it is? Williams, did I get it right? Our handicapper, Josh Williams. Josh, hello.
The net rest differential that might come into effect later on this year. Hey, we went 2-1 last week against the spread. I gave out another dead on arrival pick though with Miami. Good Lord. Said Skylar Thompson wouldn't be that bad, and he was pretty bad. You know you're bad when your fans are like, hey, that Tim Boyle, he's not that bad. He came in and looked better than Skylar Thompson, but hey, we were 2-1. Chris, we were 1-0 on the ref stats game and 1-0 on your favorite luck rankings against the spread picks. You know you love that, Chris. So let's get back into the winning ways here.
Williams, I blame myself. Okay, I blame myself. I decided to take last week off to enjoy a bit of a 90s day for me. All right. I got to take in some Matchbox 20. I got to take in some Wallflowers. I got to take in some Dave Matthews Band. I got to take in some Beck, right? I mean, we're just loading up with the 90s bands. And Williams, if I'd have been here, I would have immediately jumped all over you and said, Skylar Thompson is not a good quarterback. What are you doing? This is ridiculous. So I blame myself there, Williams.
It was more of a Mike McDaniel backing, but my God, they just looked totally overmatched. That game was over in the first quarter. So hopefully some better picks this week.
Speaking of totally overmatched, we may be joined by a special guest here on the podcast this evening who will be completely overmatched, who will try to hijack the podcast from us, who will not want to talk about anything that we were actually bringing up, but he could be very entertaining. He's an old friend. We love him all very much. Matt Wu-Tang Kozerski may or may not appear on this podcast. The reason I'm saying it now is because he will just pop in. Like, we won't really know anything about it. He'll just pop in and he'll be here, and then we'll go from there. Or he won't. So stick around and find out what happens there.
Here's the deal, Rod. He's here.
He's here.
I don't think he has video right now.
Okay, that's a problem.
But he's here, and well, Wu-Tang is here.
Okay,
and we'll see what happens on the podcast. I'm sure this will go great.
Wu, say hello to the people.
Hi.
Okay.
And we'll just let you know we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So again, we are live. Woo.
Are you reminding me not to say anything offensive?
Trying my best, brother. Good video though. Got a good video on that.
We do at least have good audio, Jimmy. So this will be huge. We can at least hear him, right? There's been times before where he's been choppy and spotty and we couldn't at least hear him. So we'll take this. Wu, are you excited to be back on the podcast and talking football?
I'm pretty darn excited. I can't wait. I thought we were going to talk Puff Daddy.
Why? Why did you get that? Why did you get that thought? Have you heard us keep up that train on numerous podcasts over the past couple of weeks? Have we been your source for breaking P. Diddy news? Why did you think we'd be covering that?
Because that's pretty much all I've been listening to is Puff Daddy stuff. Tip of the iceberg, the octopus.
All right. Well, again, that's for a different podcast. We're here to
Let's
talk a little bit about football.
I'm ready. I'm definitely ready to start talking some football.
All right, let me ask you this. You were up in the land of cheese. You were up in the land of Wisconsin. One of the bigger stories through 3 weeks is your team, the Packers. Your coach, Matt LaFleur, has taken a castaway from Tennessee named Malik Willis. And the Packers are still looking like they might be the cream of the crop in the NFC North. What are the fans up there in the land of cheese saying, Woo?
Well, I don't know what the fans are saying, but I like the receivers. I don't really talk to people much about football around here.
All right. You're too many P. Diddy chat rooms. Jimmy, how excited are you to see what's happening up there in Wisconsin with LaFleur? Because we were familiar with one Malik Willis, right? He played against our Colts a couple of times being in their division. And I certainly didn't see this. And then he, of course, beat our Colts earlier this year. So what do you think about this resurrection story?
You know what really ticks me off, Rod? The Green Bay Packers quarterback situation. Really, really ticks me off. No matter what we do as Bears fans, doesn't matter. We had number 1 pick in the draft, Caleb Williams. Hey, you know what's a great idea? Don't have anybody block for him. Kill the guy. That's fine. Malik Willis, who you could have literally had for nothing, is now 2-0 as a starter of the Green Bay Packers and probably the 13th best quarterback in the league instead of 75th. That's what ticks me off.
Chris, let me go to you with this. I'm going to continue this theme, and then we're going to go to Williams to tell us why it's happening. But couldn't you also make the argument that actually the better comeback is happening right now in Minnesota with Sam Darnold, who's leading the NFL in touchdowns?
Yes. I mean, if you're a Bears fan, I don't know if you should be so much worried about Green Bay as you should about Minnesota, because they're doing something right in Minnesota, because it was your boy Kirk Cousins with his comeback, and now they're doing the same thing with Sam Darnold. They're doing something
without
right.
Their number 1 tight end, Chris. You're forgetting about that.
It's all about Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Williams, why is this happening? Why did we see Baker Mayfield have a resurrection year last year? We saw Geno Smith kind of be resurrected, right? We've seen Darnold look good this year. We've seen Malik Willis. Heck, we saw the Red Rifle,
Red Rocket,
Andy Dalton, come in last week and completely make the Panthers look like an unstoppable force. What's going on here, Williams?
Yeah, man, coaching. I mean, I was high on Sam Darnold. I got him in fantasy in the Superflex League just because of Kevin O'Connell. And we've seen Matt LaFleur really step up his game this year to improve Malik Willis and Jordan Love. I think when Jordan Love comes back, maybe possibly this week, he's going to look good too. With Wu called it right, man. Green Bay has 4 receivers that are really tough to match up with. So, and then Dalton was throwing dimes, man. The Red Rifle. Dave Canales has worked his magic in previous stints with Baker and Geno. So, yeah, I mean, you know how much I love coaching on here, and it's good to see that there is some good coaching going on right now, because there is a ton of horrific coaching going on also.
McCarthy.
Woo, look at you taking shots. You at least know that the coin of the realm around here is taking shots at your fellow podcasters on the Morgan Podcasting Network. So you'll fit in right there as always.
Yeah,
Woo, I tried to throw you a softball and talk about the Packers. All right, you tried to lead us down the Diddy road, and I blocked you. Let's see if we can come together. Now, tell us what you'd like to discuss NFL wise before we start to get into a few other things here on the podcast, since you are our guest.
Well, I mean, the topic would be probably injuries, but we already kind of brought that up. I really, really, really like. The league is fascinating to me lately. I'm just enjoying the stats, the whole fantasy aspect of it. You know, that's about where I roll with. I don't have teams. I have players.
So you're consumed by fantasy football. You wouldn't say that the numbers in fantasy football are down this year because we've.
I would say they're down in the guys that we were planning on playing, obviously. So, you know, Rod, how many guys did you lose? Right? You know, I've lost a couple. I know DA has. I don't know about Jimmy. Do you got anyone injured on your team?
Yeah, I traded him to you, Joe Mixon.
Yeah. That's what we're doing. We're it's like never mind. Go ahead.
All right. We don't usually do too much fantasy here on the show. So let's go ahead and let's move past that a little bit. Let's go to Chris. All right. What was the biggest story of week 3 for you?
It's unfortunate for me to say this because this plays into one of my most hated rivals, Rod. All right. But you are seeing the trend that this team has lived off of for years. And it's all about defense and the run game. And that's why you have teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers 3-0. That's why you have teams like Seattle 3-0. It is a new trend that you need to have a solid defense and a solid run game, or an offensive line, like Jimmy said the Bears needed. That's my biggest takeaway and that's what scares me to death this week for the Colts going up against the Steelers. Man, I wanted them to lose, but they're doing it right. They have a solid defense that doesn't give up any points or any yards, and Fields looks like he's a miracle worker somehow when it's that defense that's winning them games.
Oh, Chris, Jimmy, you opened the door for Jimmy there. Jimmy is the #1 Justin Fields supporter on this podcast. He had an impassioned promo he cut for Fields last week, and you get to continue, Jimmy. Let's go. Gloat right here, because I think Chris hit on it. The story for me are the surprising 3-0 teams: Pittsburgh, Seattle. I think Minnesota's 3-0. I'm not sure.
Yep.
You can check me on that. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the story for me, Jimmy. The surprising teams, and one of them includes your guy.
Well, I mean, it's really no surprise for me. 2 touchdowns, 518 passing yards for Justin Fields this year. He's done exactly what everyone knew he could do: go out and win games. When he's protected, he can get it taken care of. I'm extremely, extremely proud of him. And unfortunately for me, as a season ticket holder for the Colts, I believe he will go 4-0 after this week.
Hey, stop. You stop that. Listen, you stop that. That's where I was going to go next. All right. I am not jumping off either of the trains. Believe it or not, I'm going to take a page out of my guy Chris King's book here, and I'm a fan. All right. I called the Bears train at the beginning of the year. I'm still riding. I don't care that they lost to my Colts. I still think things are looking up for the Bears. You can only block better. You can't block any worse than their offensive line is blocking right now. All right. So things are looking up for the Bears. And for my Colts, Anthony Richardson is still dynamite in football cleats. All right. Does that dynamite backfire? And there's a lot of terrible situations every once in a while. It certainly seems. But I said I was riding the A5 roller coaster, the AR5 roller coaster, and I'm riding it the rest of the year. Wu-Tang, what do you think of Anthony Richardson as a quarterback, as an athlete?
I don't. As an athlete, he's awesome. As a quarterback, he's trash. I don't think he's any good. Not a fan. Now, on the flip side of that, Rod, I think that he's got potential to put up numbers, but when you're not good and you can only he can run. I mean, he can run the ball, but I don't know. I think he's trash.
Here's something, Rob, that I think you understand about Anthony Richardson. All right. Here's a guy that can make a throw that 99% of the other quarterbacks in the NFL can't make. But he's also the quarterback who can't make the throw that 99% of other NFL quarterbacks can make.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, what did I say, Rod, in the text chain? How he's the first player ever out of to have a passing percentage under 40. You'd have to go back. Someone would have to go back and look at the text. And then you said you're still on the train. You're still on the Anthony.
You know who that somebody that go back could have been was you, when you'd known for 2 days that you were going to be on the podcast talking about NFL football. That could have been some notes you might have set aside for yourself.
I didn't know we were talking NFL football.
Oh, that's garbage. You want to go back in the text chain. I told you 2 days ago you were coming on Thursday at 9:30 to talk NFL football. Don't go there with me, Wu-Tang.
But yeah, I could have looked at it, but it was something. It was a beautiful stat.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, Wu-Tang called something trash. I'm sure that surprised you. We've never heard him have a take like that about anything in the world of sports, television, or movies. But I think you and I are a little more nuanced with Anthony Richardson. I'm not expecting perfection out of a guy right now that still basically played quarterback at a high level, meaning college football or pro, less than 25 times. So is it great right now? No. But do I still think the arrow's pointing up? Jimmy, I do. How about you as a fellow Colts fan?
I do too. He's in that stage where when he runs with the ball and throws it on the run, he's more accurate than anything else because he doesn't have time to think about it. When he has time to think about it, that's when he sails those passes. So he's still got to learn. I think Colts fans had a little higher expectations this year than what it's going to be, unfortunately. But still,
year's
hey,
not over, Jim. I'll remind you that the year's
we're
not
one
over.
game out in a crappy division right now.
That's right.
And anything can happen. I know Jackson's in the back yelling and coughing, screaming about the Colts.
Hang in there, Jackson.
It's not over. It's not over yet.
Definitely not. Williams, let's go to you about your Williams, your Caleb Williams. I'm saying that I'm not panicking about Anthony Richardson. We're starting to hear some people getting a little bit like, hey, I thought we'd see more out of Caleb Williams through 3 weeks. Where do you stand on that one?
Yeah, first of all, let me circle back to the luck rankings here. I would not be so down on your Colts, Jimmy, because
I'm not. Jimmy is. I'm not.
Yeah. One of the most luckiest teams in the league is the Steelers. One of the most unluckiest teams in the league is the Colts. I think that's going to regress this week, and I think we could see an upset in Lucas Oil this week. But as for Caleb, man, I mean, I think the Bears should have fired Eberflus last year. I think they hired Shane Fraudrin. Yeah, that's his name, Shane Fraudrin. He's terrible.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. How about we run a sprint option on 4th and 1 and lose 12 yards?
Doesn't happen every day. Doesn't happen every day that you lose 12 on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
Especially to a defense that's terrible against the run. Again, I still love my Colts, but I'm just pointing out facts here.
The worst thing the Bears could have done last year was like go on that winning streak towards the end of the year, because that's what saved Eberflus's job. And it's just obvious to me that Eberflus is in way over his head, and Fraudrin is terrible also. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think Eberflus has been spending too much time at a Diddy party.
Yep, there we go. Chris, where do you stand, Chris? Things don't look great for the Cowboys, but I bet you're still fired up like I am. Things don't look great for the Colts. I know you always have an opinion on the Bears. Where are you at on these three? We just touched on all of them.
Listen, this is a new NFL, right? We got 17 weeks and we're destined to hit 18, coming up. So this is a long season, right? I'm not panicking yet, except for maybe, which we haven't mentioned, the Bengals. I'm a little bit worried about them at 0-3. I'm real happy that my other teams aren't starting out that way. I mean, there's a lot of room for Dallas to improve. I mean, Washington's leading the NFC East right now. I think that's kind of a shocker to people too. So that's a wide open division still. Detroit does have competition though in the NFC North.
They certainly do. Jimmy, I like what Chris just said there. He's worried about. Give me something you're worried about from 3 weeks in before we go to Williams' picks here real quick. What worries you? Like he said, he's worried about the Bengals.
I think the Bengals is a really good pick there. I'm really worried about those Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, and I think, Rod, you've kind of been on this for a while. It's like at some point you got to do something, and you can't blame it all on the coaching. There was they got embarrassed by the Bills. It wasn't close. About 15 minutes in, you knew the game was over. They just gave up. So there's something. Jacksonville's just been bitten for the past 3 years. Just nothing's gone right for him. He may not be long for Jacksonville.
I'll tell you what I'm a little worried about, and I'm gonna go a little snarky here. I'm a little worried about all of the NFL so-called experts out there in the world, because all I heard was that we were going to come into a year where the Houston Texans were just going to light the world on fire. Man, Bobby Slowick had figured the NFL out. CJ Stroud was the most amazing quarterback that's come in the league since Patrick Mahomes. Most of them were at least quick to say that he's the most amazing quarterback to come in the league since Mahomes, and we have just not seen that out of this Houston Texans team. The Houston Texans are who we thought they were, who they continue to be, and also ran in the AFC South. I really have to question anybody that thought the Texans were going to run away with the AFC South, because the team I've seen on the field through 3 weeks certainly does not seem like the juggernaut I was promised. So that's what I'm a little worried about through 3 weeks. I'm dangerous and scared to go to our guest for what he's worried about through 3 weeks, because I have a feeling he's going to relate it to Diddy somehow. But Wu-Tang, I'm going to do it anyway. What are you worried about NFL-wise through 3 weeks?
Well, actually, I was gonna, if I would have made a decision, I'd say the Bengals. I think that's just like the ultimate call. And then, believe it or not, my second choice would have probably been Trevor Lawrence. But since those have already been taken, my biggest worry is Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know, they look bored. I mean, I've only watched a little bit of them, but even though they're winning, I'm not impressed.
Not impressed by the Chiefs. I'll take that as a take. Williams, excuse me, my goodness, you're the handicapper here who's got many formulas, many numbers. You got statistics to back up. What worries you the most through 3 weeks before you give us your picks?
Well, I think it leads right into my first pick, so I'll wait on that. But some good news for the Jags. Teams coming off a 35-plus point loss the previous week and are dogs of 4.5 points or more are 50, 19, and 2 against the spread over the past 25 years. That's 73%. I couldn't bring myself to take the Jags on the picks because I knew you guys would just boo me off of here. But I'm just throwing that stat out there.
I like that. Listen, that's why you're the man. That's why you're the handicapper. Let's get to the goods here. Let's go to, I think your first pick is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles at my guy Baker's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go. Baker didn't look as great last week as I would have liked, but I'm still up on the Bucs.
Yeah, this is my number one thing that I'm worried about, and it's not Tampa. It's Philly. I know they're 2-1, but this team is, boy, oh boy, man, Nick Sirianni. I mean, it's only a matter of time before this buffoon makes another boneheaded decision. What was his end game last week with going for it on 4th and 1 from the 15 with less than 20 seconds left in the second quarter? I mean, what are you doing? He passed on points earlier in the game. The Eagles fans that were in New Orleans were absolutely losing their mind. I went against Tampa last week because I thought they were in a sleepy spot going up against a winless out-of-conference team at 1 o'clock. I was correct on that one. That happened to get that one right, but I'm backing them this week. I'm taking Tampa.
Baker, baby. Baker. That's what I'm talking about.
Tampa +2 -110 on ESPN Bet. Yeah, I mean, I think big defensive tackle Vita Vea returned to practice today. He is huge when trying to stop the opponent's rushing attack. And where is Philly going to go here? There's no Lane Johnson. He's out with a concussion. There's no Devonta Smith. He's out with a concussion. No A.J. Brown. He's nursing a hamstring injury. You know, I always want the more focused team here. I think Philly knows they just got away with one in New Orleans. Now they're all kinds of banged up. They have to play in the Florida humidity with that hurricane that just passed through. And oh, by the way, I mean, Todd Bowles made it extremely difficult on Jalen Hurts last time these teams matched up in the playoffs last year. And here's one more thing that goes unnoticed. The Eagles have a bye next week. So you don't think these guys who have been out on the road for a couple weeks, who are all banged up, want to just get past that bye week? I think you're going to get a less than enthused Philly team here where you should be getting a super focused Bucs team as they just got embarrassed at home last week. 60% of the tickets are on Philly. 76% of the money is on Tampa. Give me Tampa getting points here at home on Sunday.
Listen, we all know I'm going with Tampa. I love me some Baker Mayfield. Woo! You're a culture guy. You sniff bad things down there in Philadelphia. If Sirianni gets beat this week and goes 2-2 into a bye week, do you think the Eagles fire him?
I actually think it's a possibility. I think that's another team. You know, they like William said, they're 2-1, but they don't look like they play with much purpose. And who does that fall upon? The coach, the culture. You know, you got to go out there and do your thing. And as the players, and part of that is your coach needs to lead, and he's not leading.
Certainly doesn't seem that way. Chris, I saw you shaking your head. You don't think it's possible that even if they lose, he gets fired?
No. Okay, so here's something about NFC East you guys need to remember. All right. Yes, it's not great that you're 2-2 and you're losing this week to Tampa Bay, but you haven't played NFC East opponents yet. As long as you're not losing to the Redskins and the Giants and the Cowboys, you're probably still safe towards the end of the season, especially with what Sirianni has been able to achieve so far. So as long as they're not losing to NFC East opponents, I think his job is safe.
Jimmy Jam, what do you think? Doesn't smell great down there in Philly, and you know that you love Baker just like I do. I know you do. In your heart, you love Baker.
So I think the Eagles have a huge opportunity here to fire Sirianni. If they really are going to do it, this would be the week if they lose. And I think they should if they lose. If not, you got to keep him for the rest of the year and just hope for the best. You have Saquon Barkley playing out of his mind right now. You don't know how long that's going to last. You need to take advantage of every single second. You can't be giving these games away. So if they lose again, get them out of there. Bring Bill Belichick in. Let's win the East. Let's go.
Bring Bill Belichick in. Woo, you're our guest picker. What do you got, Philly or Tampa in that game?
I'm going with Tampa 100%.
Nice.
I like how Baker's playing. I'm a big Baker guy. I almost bought a Baker jersey yesterday for Thad, actually. I had it in my hand.
There you go. You love his progressive ads.
Well, no, I like how he's no nonsense. He's fun. I'll roll with that. No nonsense and fun all at the same time.
This is a pro Baker podcast.
He's like a mullet. He's like a mullet.
Is he? I don't know if Baker would like that one or not. Let's move on to a team that maybe, just maybe, contains the MVP of the entire NFL through the first 3 weeks. That would be your Buffalo Bills taking on the Baltimore Ravens, a team who maybe could possibly be a little bit worried. Williams, what do you got for us on this one?
Yeah, this may surprise a few people here. I'm going to take the Ravens -2.5, -105 on FanDuel. For what it's worth here, teams that are 3-0, Buffalo, and are underdogs in week 4 going back to 2003 are only 37% against the spread. Also, I've given this stat out on here before. Lamar, when he's a dog or a favorite of 3 points or less, he's 23-7 against the spread. The Ravens have also been the unluckiest penalized team this year. I know Chris loves that. You have to attack the Bills in the short and intermediate areas of the field on offense. Lamar is elite in QBR throwing to those areas on the field. And what have we seen from OC Joe Brady from the Bills this year? He's been great, by the way, but he wants to run the ball more this year for Buffalo. Ravens D, number 1 versus the run in multiple different metrics. The Ravens are going to play zone here. The Jags should have done that last week. The Jags gave everybody the blueprint on what not to do versus Josh Allen on Monday night. They didn't adjust at all. They went into the game playing a ton of man. They continued to play a ton of man in that game, and Josh Allen ripped them apart. The Ravens aren't going to do that. They'll play zone for majority of this game. The Bills are also coming off short rest. Todd Monken, offense coordinator for the Ravens, has went directly at the opposing team's weaknesses in all 3 matchups so far this year. This is a step up in class for the Bills D. I think you're going to see this Ravens team, like I said, attack the middle of the field. The Bills are bottom 5 EP on defending throws within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. The Bills also don't blitz very often. Lamar, EPA-wise, has been better when he hasn't faced a blitz. And the Bills play zone at the 7th highest rate. Lamar splits much better versus zone. He grades out as the 2nd best QB versus zone this season. And finally, we have some more ref stats, Chris. Allen X Crew is officiating this game. He is a let him play type of ref, and that should benefit the physicality that the Ravens often play with. Since the start of last season, no officiating crew has called fewer combined offensive holding and false start penalties than X Crew. Also, with Eck officiating these games, home teams are 14-5, 74% on the money line, and they're 12-7 against the spread. That's 64% in Eck's career as a head ref. I know the public is going to be all over Buffalo here. That makes me want to play the Ravens even more. Give me the Ravens -2.5 on Sunday night.
The Bills have a patchwork defense. All right. They don't necessarily have a lot of great bodies there, but they got great minds that are scheming things together. They got the old washed up Von Miller playing like 16 plays a game, but his hair's on fire every time he comes in for those 16 plays a game. But the Ravens have a fraudulent offensive line. So what I think that equals out here is we get Josh Allen v. Lamar. That should make it a fun watch. I'm excited for this one. I'm going to go ahead and back Williams and pick the Ravens here. My gut tells me Buffalo's actually going to go 4-0, but I'm going to back Williams here. I like what he's saying. I like John Harbaugh. I'm going Ravens. Chris, what do you say?
So I think there's one thing you're forgetting about that Bills defense, Rod, and his last name is Hamlin. And I think that that they got a little bit of the Angels in the secondary situation going on in Buffalo because their secondary is playing pretty well. They're only allowing 168 yards a game passing. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Derrick Henry this week. and then some Lamar sprinkled in, maybe some RPO. I think you have to run the ball against this Bills defense if you want to have success. And if they do that, then I agree. I think Ravens come out on top.
Jimmy, I don't know if you can do this on short notice or not, but if you can get us a picture of Tony Danza, and then if we see somebody that looks like Tony Danza appear on the sideline for the Buffalo Bills, we will know that Chris is absolutely on to something here. I love this call by him. Woo. What do you think? You've got to have an opinion here on an Angels on the gridiron situation that Chris is discussing.
I have an opinion, actually, and strangely enough, I agree with all of you at this point. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think there's going to be some great passing, some great running. I'm not sure if we're going to see a whole lot of lockdown defenses, though, Chris. Even in the secondary, I'm going to go with Henry having a big game and the Baltimore taking the win and covering.
Nice. There we have it. Jimmy Jam, I know you're efforting up there. I wanted to come to you last for your pick. What do you got here in Buffalo v. Baltimore?
I have Buffalo winning this because Tony Danza is not going to be in that outfield, even though Trevor Lawrence did throw the only interception to a dead guy in the NFL history last week. I heard that, and I thought that was hilarious. But, no, I think Baltimore's still they're still struggling a little bit. I really do like Buffalo in that defense over the Ravens right now.
Now, here's the question.
Greatest producer in history.
He definitely is.
Yeah,
now, here's
could
the
have done a
question
better job on that picture, but whatever.
A lot of people probably aren't aware that one Tony Danza, who we just referenced there because of the Angels in the outfield situation, was also in a football movie where he portrayed a city of Philadelphia garbage worker who at one time hurt his leg on the job and became an expert field goal kicker and ended up on the Philadelphia Eagles. And that piece of cinematic wonder is called the garbage picking, field goal kicking Philadelphia phenomenon. All right. If you get Tony Danza somehow kicking a field goal for the Buffalo Bills while an Angel helps DeMar Hamlin get an interception, my mind will absolutely explode. There we go. You only come to the Morgan Podcasting Network and Balls and Brew for football evaluation like this. All right. Williams gives you the numbers. He sounds smart about football, and I talk about the garbage picking, field goal kicking Philadelphia phenomenon. Only here. Williams, let's move to my surprise 3-0 team, the team that I told you would get the new coach bounce this year. Harbaugh was the popular pick, but I said the new coach bounce would be the Seattle Seahawks. They are 3-0. They take on Chris's Detroit Lions. What do you got for us on this game?
Yeah, I took a future on Mike McDonald to win Coach of the Year before the season started. So I went against them last week. Shame on me. I am taking the Seattle Seahawks plus 3.5 on Monday night. Injuries are huge in this one. The Lions will be without the best center in football and Frank Ragnow. That's a big blow. So because the corners are so good for Seattle and Witherspoon and Woolen, how the Patriots tried to beat Seattle in week 2 was with a bunch of short passes to the tight end. Hunter Henry had a good game. But for Detroit, Sam Laporta was a non-participant with an ankle sprain today. He's questionable for Monday Night Football. And on the defensive side of the ball, the Lions had to put defensive end Marcus Davenport and linebacker Derek Barnes on the IR this week. For Seattle, looks like Kenneth Walker was a limited participant in practice on Thursday. That's usually a good sign for the player to play on Monday night. And we have a mini ref stat here, just a mini ref stat. Alex Kemp is officiating this game. Home teams are 3 games under 500 against the spread in his career when he's officiating. But my biggest reason for taking Seattle plus 3.5 here, let me remind you guys all of some coaching revisionist history. Week 7 last year, the Lions were rolling. They were 5-1. They went into Baltimore, and at the end of the third quarter, they were down 35-0.
Yeah,
why do I bring up that game? Goff finished that game with 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. He took 5 sacks and had a 14.8 QBR. Who was the defensive coordinator of that Ravens team? It was none other than Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald now, obviously, the head coach of the Seahawks, who have given up the second fewest amount of points in the conference to date. I mean, he's got that defense rolling. Yes, I realize Seattle hasn't played the toughest schedule early on in the season, and I know they have some linebacker and defensive line injuries that are banged up as well. But this Lions offense is not clicking right now. 20 points in regulation versus a bad Rams defense, 20 points versus what everyone keeps telling me is a bad Zona defense. By the way, I'm not sure I believe that. And then 16 points to a Tampa D that just gave up 26 to the Broncos. So I don't know. To me, something is just a little off with this Lions offense right now. I'll take 3 plus the hook with Seattle on Monday night.
Chris, he's coming right at your beloved Dan Campbell, right at your beloved Lions, taking your hated Seattle Seahawks. Actually, I'm not sure if you hate the Seahawks. I don't really have any evidence that you've said anything bad about the Seahawks, but it fit the narrative for a second there, Chris. Defend your line.
I gotta say, first off, since this got brought up somehow, I have no hatred for the wonderful city of Seattle. Every time I've been there, they have treated me with the utmost respect.
That's the one city. That's the one city in America. I don't assume that you have trouble there like you do everywhere else.
Whether I was at the wharf,
Seattle on horseback, Chris.
It doesn't matter if I was on the wharf or up on Snob Hill, and the people of Seattle know what I'm talking about.
Oregon Trail.
Treated with respect and dignity. Thank you very much, Seattle. That being said, I'm sorry. I will say this. I am worried about Goff. He's turning the ball over a little bit too much. The Lions are moving the ball a lot. They are top 5 in yards offense, but they are only middle of the pack when it comes to scoring. So they're not finishing these drives. They're not scoring touchdowns, and that's an issue, especially against a defense like that. That being said, I'm a fan, Rod. Lions will win this. Don't know if they'll cover, though, but they're going to win the game.
I'm going Lions as well. I'm all in on the Seattle bandwagon, all in on the McDonald experience up there. Love me some Geno Smith. I've been a supporter for years, but I'm all in on the Lions. I love Applebee's. I think they have the greatest boneless wings in America. A commercial has told me so. So I'm all in for the Lions and Dan Campbell. Jimmy, what do you got?
The Seahawks have to start losing if they're going to get the number 1 pick in the draft, like I predicted at the beginning of the season. So let's go Lions, please.
Wu-Tang, our guest. You feel the Lions? You feel the Seahawks? Do you love the fish market? Are you more a fan of Eminem and the Motor City? What do you got for us here?
I'm actually going to go with Detroit on this. I think they're not playing up to their level. I think part of that is, I know Williams kind of went with, depth issues, injuries he was talking about, but I just think they don't have their identity necessarily. I think St. Brown is obviously the stud, but what's his name? The Williams guy. He's having a pretty good year. And
that's
then,
actually what it says on the back of his jersey. It's the longest jersey in NFL history. It says that Williams guy. It actually says that on the back of his jersey. Good call by you.
Another Jay Williams.
And then I think this whole Gibbs and Montgomery thing, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I actually think Gibbs is trash. That's just my own opinion.
I don't know if Gibbs is trash, but I'd say Montgomery seems to be better this year. And I bet the Bears would love to have him at running back right now.
It's a lot like the Lakers.
Okay.
Montgomery he should be playing. He deserves to be starting and playing and getting the majority of touches, but he's an old guy who's prone to injury. And you want Gibbs, the young stud, to come up. I think that's screwing with their whole, and same thing again with the receivers.
Is Gibbs on your fantasy team, Lou?
No. I wouldn't touch him.
That's a good call by you, though, Chris. I wouldn't touch him. To do with
and I'm going to say this, too. The Lions are still the most exciting team to watch in the NFL because every game is exciting. Every game they've played so far has been decided by less than 6 points or 6 points or less. So still the most exciting team to watch in the NFL.
And I don't know how sold I am on Goff. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's good. He's just middling, and he needs to show me something. So, but
NFC Championship games not showing you something.
What has he shown me this year? Do you feel? Would you feel confident right now, Chris? Seriously, would you feel confident if you had a game to win, having Goff as your quarterback or throwing Baker on Detroit right now? You know what I mean?
Somehow Baker. Baker.
I mean. If I have to judge it by the totality of the career, I think I'd still go Goff. He's had better playoff
we're not talking
success.
About the totality of the career. We're talking about this. We're talking about this season.
Yeah, well, you know what else, Woo? We enjoyed having you on for football this week. All right, but we need to wrap and go to another big cultural event that happened this week that relates to wrestling, the thing we normally talk about. Williams, we will say goodbye to you here, though, my friend. Every once in a while, I get so excited about talking about wrestling, I forget to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much. Do you have any closing NFL thoughts for the people before we move on and talk wrestling?
Just to throw this out, possible futures market here.
Nice.
I know everybody is way down on the Cincinnati team, but if you look at the next 6 games, they could possibly win all 6 of those. Joe Burrow has 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's slinging it out there. He now has a healthy Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Andre Ishovas is an upgrade off Tyler Boyd. Mike Gesicki looks like he's revived in Cincinnati. I'm just saying 28-1 on Joey Burrow MVP is not crazy to me.
Look out. Williams
They
bring it back.
Get it early.
Impressive this past week. Even though they lost, they did look a lot better.
Get it early. If we can just get some defensive reinforcements back healthy for Cincinnati, you know that division is winnable. So, and Buffalo's schedule is going to get much tougher. I know Josh Allen would be the MVP pick right now, but it's a long season.
Right.
That team is going to take some losses here coming up.
Jimmy Jam, Williams bringing back the futures market watch. And you know what else Jimmy Jam's going to be bringing? I know.
28-1 on Caesars. On Caesars. 28-1 on Caesars.
And you know what else Jimmy's going to be bringing back? He's going to be bringing back the very popular wrestling show we have here on the network. It's called Yeah, We Know. We talk about the WWE. And you know what? A special guest is going to join us to talk wrestling. And that's Wu-Tang on the other side.
Yeah, We Know podcast, part of the Morgan Knows podcasting network. In the ring with Jimmy, Chris, Rod, and Wu-Tang on the Yeah, We Know podcast. Gentlemen, the biggest story of the week. Doesn't really matter because we're going to go to Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I know what the biggest story of the week is, but I think we should talk McMahon. I watched a couple episodes today. Watched episode. Was it last night, Rod, when we were texting? Is that when it came out, or the night before?
Yes, it's probably yesterday.
So last night I watched the first episode. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't super impressed with the first episode.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. So Junior is the first episode and kind of went back to his childhood a little bit. Is there anything at all that stood out to you about his childhood? You said you really weren't impressed with the episode, but did you learn anything, Woo? That's the most important thing.
That he was beaten as a child and his dad wasn't around, even though his dad had all kinds of money.
Yeah, Rod, they really didn't go into that. I knew about his upbringing, but they didn't really go into at all why his dad wasn't there and what happened with that.
Yeah, and I didn't get the feeling that his dad was like rolling in the dough, just that his dad was like certainly in a much better situation than Vince was in, right? Because you were kind of led to believe that like the territories at the time, you know what I mean, and like the level of folks who were buying the tickets and all of that stuff, right? They certainly make a point of talking about all that. So I don't get the feeling like his dad was rolling in millions of dollars, but his dad was certainly in a much better situation than Vince was in. And they gloss over perhaps the reasons for their estrangement, but they definitely continue to hit on it because I was absolutely enthralled by this thing and burned through all 6 episodes in the last 2 days. So I'm going to do my best to not say something that gets ahead of you guys, but I've got 5 pages of notes on this thing and I broke it down by episode. So I should be.
Rod, I do want you to ask at least one question, maybe 2 questions per episode, but I want to go to Chris real quick. Chris, were you able to watch the first episode?
I've been through 3.5 episodes so far.
Okay, so you and I are basically at the same.
That's about where I'm at too. Yeah.
What did you learn, Chris, from the first episode, Junior, about Vince and his dad?
So I definitely didn't know really anything about his more formidable years, his pre-teen, teen years at all. So everything like that was new to me. I did like getting that more information about the territories and how it was back when I was younger, in the 70s and so forth. I like that backstory as well to see how the
you weren't younger in the 70s. Stop lying to these people.
I mean, younger than you are now, but not younger. 30, 35 is
exactly.
not young.
Well, whatever the
Chris
age
is
may
around
have
to
been.
wrestle with Jack Johnson.
Yeah, whatever the age may have been, I'm just saying it was nice to see how those territories were and how it was really a big thing for that to start changing and that changing of the guard. So that was really interesting to me.
Okay, Chris actually worked with Vince McMahon's father, so that's kind of interesting. Wu-Tang, episode 2 was called Heat, and I think you liked that one a little bit better. Any questions you had coming out of that, or what are your thoughts on episode 2, Heat?
I mean, questions? No, I thought it was just it got more in. It was way more interesting to me.
Okay.
I enjoyed getting a little more of the, the backstory of the WWF or whatever it was at the time,
Yep,
right? Or
WWF.
was it? Is it W? It was now it's
There were
WWE.
3 W's at one point, then it went down to 2. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Was this the episode where they talked about the steroid use, or was that episode 3?
I think it might have been 3, but we can talk about the steroid use if you want to get into that.
No, steroids is 2. That's the first time that we were
Oh,
introduced to Dr.
okay.
George Zahorian and the steroid trial.
Yes.
The government charging him, all that stuff comes up. Phil Mushnick also makes his first appearance.
Yes,
in
a lot
episode 2.
of info there.
I found it fascinating that Hogan testified against him.
Well, but he did, but he didn't.
That's a later episode.
Yeah,
that
but, and
later?
I think we can talk about that real quick. Hogan is in this a lot, obviously, because
lot.
he and McMahon kind of grew up together. But you can see, Rod, Hogan sticks to these stories that really aren't true, and even testifying. Yeah, brother, I'm going to testify against McMahon. No problem. And then he doesn't testify against Vince McMahon. At least he's consistent, I guess, right?
Yeah, but see, the thing you got to love about Hogan, right, is that Hogan is the center of the universe in every story that is ever told, right? And then also, though, he does sort of take, for what it is, right? He says, I took steroids. You know what I mean? He didn't tell me I had to. Do I believe
but you know what, though, Rod? He doesn't say that very often. You know, that's one of the first times he's actually said it. Yeah.
Exactly, because he didn't say it on Arsenio and got himself in a boatload of trouble, right? If he would have just said it there on Arsenio, because again, let's relate it to the baseball steroid situation. Does anybody remember that Andy Pettitte took steroids? No, because as soon as word came out that Andy Pettitte took steroids, he came out with the statement, said he took steroids. He was sorry about it. We all forgave him and moved on. So if Hogan would have done that, it would have been good. I loved Hogan as a talking head. Loved Bret Hart as a talking head. Bret Hart is an absolute savage. Love him as a talking head. And your guy, Jimmy Meltzer, God bless Dave Meltzer for being the voice of reason throughout this entire documentary. He's huge in later episodes.
So it's so fun where you have Vince McMahon saying something and then Meltzer comes right back and says, no, that's not how it was. Obviously he didn't know what was going on and how they were going to edit it together. And I think, Chris, one thing that Vince said, he put out a pretty long statement about this documentary. Now, remember, up until the very end, Vince sat down for all these interviews, gave total access to everything. But then came out, Chris, and said he did not like this documentary. You shouldn't watch it. It's not real. Does Vince not know how this works, Chris? Everyone's now going to watch this.
I mean, isn't that Vince still being a businessman, right? Like he's got to realize we should realize whatever contract that he has with Netflix for this documentary, he's getting something for it, right?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
He's got to be getting residuals. We know, and he talks about it throughout each episode, how he's a businessman, how business is business. What he did to the territories is business. What WCW did to him was personal or whatever, but it's a business.
Wasn't fair.
For him. It's a business. And so this is a business transaction for him. He needs money. Why not create heat for this documentary? He already is playing the heel in real life now, as well as what he did in the industry. So like this to me is exactly what I would expect from Mr. McMahon.
This is face saving, Jimmy. There's still a federal investigation that's ongoing right now. There's still a lawsuit that's on pause because of the federal investigation. So McMahon has to have the appearance of not allowing these things that are presented in the documentary, because some pretty incendiary stuff happens in later episodes as well. So he can't have the appearance of it being fact.
Wu-Tang, I'd like to ask you a couple questions here. Number one, if someone says, no, I didn't rape her, but even if I did, the statute of limitations is over. How does that make you feel?
It sounds bad.
Doesn't sound like I mean, literally without taking a breath, then goes, statute of limitations is over anyway. And then at the end of that episode, obviously, little crawl comes up saying, yeah, they took that law out and he paid, he made a payment. So that's
settled
thing there. Settlement. Thank you, Chris. And then also Wu-Tang, what about and I'm paraphrasing here from Vince saying, sometimes I say words that I'm not actually thinking. I've never heard that before. Wu-Tang, have you ever had any experience with that before?
Listen, I have words and they come from thought, but my trait, just like today in the text chain, when I brought up what if
nope. We're not talking about any restaurants involving hamburgers. No.
But I mean, I get that. I get it. You got a lot going on in your mind.
Jimmy, your quote came from episode 3 as well. You're getting ahead on the people. Vince didn't say that until episode 3.
Rod, I do appreciate Rod, and Wu-Tang, Rod did actually do a lot of note taking here, and I really appreciate that. So, Rod, let's talk about a couple subjects you have. Anything that jumps out at you right now? We're only going to talk about the first 3 episodes because that's kind of where we're all at. Next week we'll talk about the next 3. But Rod, let's hit some Tony Atlas. Rod, your thoughts on Tony Atlas?
Tony Atlas, not incredibly familiar with Tony Atlas. Questioned the virality of everything he had to say based on his outfit choice, but then I told myself,
interesting outfit choice. Yes,
that's not very fair of me to cut down on him for going with the sleeveless look, but yet still deciding to wear a tie. So he was at least trying to class it up, but he was telling it like it is in the back room, right? Bret Hart was telling it like it is, but nobody loves themselves some Bret Hart more than Bret Hart, so that makes his takes pretty interesting as well. And I think my overall arching thought of the documentary, I'll have to wait for the last 3 episodes because the one thing that stuck out to me the most doesn't come up a lot in the first 3 episodes. But I did love how at the beginning you see, and Chris alluded to this, the way that Vince built his business, buying stars that were already made in other territories and putting them on TV, right? And then that's exactly what happens at the end of episode 3 with WCW, where they're taking all of Vince's already made stars and giving them less days to work and more money and more guarantees. And somehow that's completely different, right? And you just get the line from Vince that Jimmy was talking about, right? Is he's like, sometimes I say a lot of things and I don't even believe what I say, but I have to say things even if I don't believe them, because you have to say things as a businessman. Do you know what I mean? And it's so many times throughout this documentary, you get Vince relating everything to business, right? And you get Vince saying things like, people lose sight of who they really are in this business. And the best characters are you just turned up a little, right? And other people say that. And then Hulk Hogan, within the first 15 minutes of the documentary, looks directly into the camera as if he's talking to all the listeners. And he's like, you guys aren't going to get the whole enchilada here, right? Like, you're basically told right from the beginning that you're going to get stories that are going to be crafted by people to try to fit a narrative that makes them look good. And nobody's ever really going to give you the 100% truth. And I think the documentary does a great job of laying that out for you in the beginning and then just presenting all of the different sides and hinting at what it's saying, but not beating you over the head with it, Jimmy. I thought that was masterful work by Bill Simmons and the director, Chris Smith.
Yeah. So your Bret Hart, I am the owner of a Bret Hart 535-page autobiography. Bret Hart does love him some Bret Hart. He does love him some wrestling. And I think it was interesting just to kind of see where he came from. Wrestling with Shadows is a terrific documentary that I recommend to everybody. They showed a little bit of footage from that for the screw job. Chris,
this is the title of episode 3 real quick, Jimmy. We didn't mention that. Episode 3.
Yep. Screw job is number 3. Chris, did you feel that a lot of people were just trying to give a narrative that Vince wanted? And then, because I think people are still worried he's coming back at some point.
I mean, I think it's really clear that there are people that are still loyal to what he created for them to prosper. So I definitely can see that. You can definitely tell there were certain wrestlers that didn't have that animosity towards him, but there are definitely people that were on there that had nothing but vitriol for Vince. I mean, you could definitely tell a difference there.
After this podcast is over, I want everyone to Google the name Saba Simba WWE. That is Tony Atlas's last gimmick in WWE. He may or may not have some anger towards Vince McMahon. Wu-Tang, what's something else you took out of this from coming from someone who's not a wrestling fan per se?
Well, I just found it interesting. Did they get to the pedophilia yet, or was that in the next episode?
That is in the top 3 episodes.
Yeah, that's episode 2.
I found that interesting. I mean, I here's what I think. The whole deal. They're all rich people, powerful people like Vince McMahon. They're fucking. We're on live. They're gross. You know what I mean? And that's what I came away with watching. He's just a gross old man with bad plastic surgery who had an interesting life and did some interesting things and created, or at least helped to create some very fond memories of my childhood. I mean, they talked about Saturday night's main event, how excited they were. And I remember being super jazzed for Saturday night's main event as a 10-year-old or however old I probably was, And so that's what I kind of came away with. Huh?
Yeah, it's coming back this year, Saturday night's main event. Rod, so yeah, Wu-Tang brought up kind of like a sleazy thing. Joe, the Tiger King, was a documentary that kind of gave you the same feels a little bit. You didn't see it as it was happening, but all these stories about the ring boys and about the women. I mean, Tony Atlas just comes right up and says we abuse women all the time after 3 seconds, and then they move on to something else. Did that kind of give you the same feel as this is just kind of, it used to be very, very just like a sleazy place to be around?
I think that's very clear, but I think that let me be careful here. I worry that we make this too much of a WWE problem and not enough of a problem that existed in a lot of organizations and a lot of companies and a lot of workplaces back in the particular times that are being discussed here, right? Because there's another theme that's throughout this entire documentary, that wrestling basically just mirrors what's going on in American society, right? All Vince is trying to do is create escapism and entertainment for people, right? They talk an awful lot about the Iron Sheik and Hogan, right? At the end of episode 1, where we've got American hostages in Iran, and we as Americans can't just go yell at an Iranian sheik on the streets, right? But where we can go yell at an Iranian sheik is watching Hulk Hogan, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed American badass, taking him down in the middle of the ring, right? So I think so many of the things about the women are sure terrible, right? And so many people come on, and it's interesting to see how they handle it, right? Shawn Michaels basically just comes out, and at first he seems like he's not going to be apologetic about it. And then he's like, well, but then I got a daughter, and now I realize it's absolutely terrible. You see a guy like The Rock come on, and you just see the fear in his eyes, right? Because he knows at that moment the power of anything that he says in the position that he's in right now. So he treats completely wash it away. But Triple H, I think, has the quote of quotes there, right? And he has so many quotes where Triple H seems like the coolest guy, right? He's involved in all of this chaos, but he seems to come out on the other end, understanding it and not taking it too seriously. And Triple H says, yeah. Do you blame the people who are doing it, or do you blame the people who are in the crowd cheering it, right? And that's what we have to remember about all of these things that we're talking about. When you talk about the bra and panty matches, and you talk about the treatment of Sable and all of these women that we saw depicted on camera, which is so much of what this documentary brings up, other than the lawsuits, which we don't see the trial. We don't see the evidence in any of those things. We just talk about how they're brought up and how they're settled. But the things all we see are on camera, and those were eaten up by the fans of the WWE to ratings and money success. So I don't know if you blame the WWE, Jimmy, or you talk more about what was going on at the time.
Chris, I love your perspective, because you do come in as a fan, good guy, bad guy. You have your favorites, Drew McIntyre, who's a bad guy for sure. Are you able to kind of separate the real life with the product that you see here?
Yeah, I know don't want to sometimes. All right. Like there are times I don't want to, all right. I enjoy wrestling. I don't want to know about the clique in the locker room. I don't
Interesting.
necessarily always want to know about the shadiness and the backstabbing and the craziness, the abuse or whatever it may be, the mistreatment of people on airlines and airplanes and things that we have heard over the years that I haven't seen them touch on yet. And we're already past that timeline in the documentary. But like, so there are times I don't want to, but like I know it's there. I know it exists, and it does make me upset sometimes, but I'm also the same dude that was watching during the Attitude Era, right? Especially at the beginning. Like I was there during the Monday Night Wars when everybody was trying to overdo everybody else and things got real crazy and nuts. And I was there watching. So like I know I'm partly to blame for that too. So I do see there's a difference. I just wish, and I know this is the idealist in me, that I could have a product that I can enjoy and still know that people are being treated correctly. Like wrestlers aren't being taken advantage of, people aren't being mistreated or abused or forced into doing things they don't want to do. Like I really wish that could be true. And I do think we're at least working more towards that as we go. And that's all we can really hope for, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, are we just rationalizing the fact that we don't, we just like what we like and it doesn't really matter what happens?
I would probably say so. I think that's fair to say. I mean, I'm on the opposite end. I find the idea of the click and all the backstage stuff infinitely more interesting than any of the stories or anything like that. I like the realism of that part with it. The human interactions again too, just like we talk in some of the other sports ones, talking about, company culture, and where it starts and what it's all about. And, those are all real people with real jobs. Yeah.
And let me make one thing real quick. It's not the clique or a faction per se, but I don't want to find out right now that members from LWO and whoever are really hanging out backstage and like giving each other high fives. Like I don't want to know that. And that's what the clique was essentially doing. You had two guys that were supposed to be enemies. You find out they're in their own little faction in the locker room. Like if they're going to be enemies, like I want the kayfabe. If they're enemies in the ring, I need to make sure that there's still enemies in the locker room too. I do not want to see Drew McIntyre dapping up CM Punk in the locker room
I
at
don't think
all.
that's happening. I don't think that's
So Chris is someone who doesn't want to see the behind the scenes of Avengers where Josh Brolin has dots all over his face walking around, where Wu-Tang does, because he finds that fascinating, which is interesting. We do have to kind of start wrapping up a little bit here, but I know there's so much more to get to. Rod, I know you've got, and I appreciate you so much for taking all these notes, and we're going to get into this a lot more over the next couple of weeks for sure. But Rod, what's another big thing out of all three episodes? What is the one thing that you took away that you want to talk about right now?
I mean, Wu and Chris kind of hit on it there, and like let's make mention of the big revelations here. And episode 3 gets into possibly one of the most famous events in wrestling history. All right, and that is the Montreal Screwjob. Okay, the Montreal Screwjob is one of the first times that us as wrestling fans were let in more on the behind the scenes. Outcomes are predetermined. We were first let in a little bit more on Vince McMahon is making all of the calls. It birthed the Mr. McMahon character, which then led to the Attitude Era, which then led to Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and wrestling basically skyrocketing. So I love the Montreal Screwjob. Jimmy, you talked about it. There's the Bret Hart documentary that exists that goes into it a little bit. There's a documentary series on The Ringer where they've gone into it. There's books. Jim Ross has tackled it. Undertaker and Mankind have talked about it on YouTube before. But this is the first time I ever heard where Vince and Bret went at one another, locked up like wrestlers, and Bret Hart apparently undercut Vince McMahon, knocked him up into the air, and knocked him cold out. So that's the first time I'd ever heard that before, because Vince definitely does like to spin the yarn that he was an honorable man who strutted in there and was going to allow Bret Hart to punch him because that's what had to happen. And from the Vince McMahon that I saw, that's probably bullshit. And even though Bret Hart does love him some Bret Hart, I think that's probably closer to what happened.
Well, and then Undertaker's like, no, it's exactly what happened. Bret Hart, which I thought was cool. He's like, how did he hit him like that? That was weird. Chris, what's one thing you want to chat about before we get out of here?
I want to give a little bit of credit to a guy I haven't really given credit to in the past, and that's
Dave
Eric
Meltzer.
Bischoff.
Okay.
Like, let's be honest here. He had an idea and he made it work when he brought over. Like, I didn't know that backstory is like the beginning of Nitro, how the Outsiders really became NWO.
Okay.
I didn't watch WCW that early. I didn't start watching Nitro 2 a little bit later, I don't think. So, like, I didn't remember how they brought in Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. I think I wasn't even, and I didn't watch Bash at the Beach when Hogan made his turn. That's some genius level type stuff in the wrestling world. And so I want to give some props to Eric Bischoff. There's a lot of stuff I didn't realize.
Speaking of famous events in wrestling, for sure. But Jimmy, I think this is me having a little bit of knowledge and not as much as you. Didn't Bischoff rip off a New Japan storyline for NWO, even though he wants to talk about Vince ripping him off with DX?
Yeah, he did. I mean, he did for sure a little bit there. One other thing that was cool, if you watch the whole like Hogan talk after he turns, he refers to it as the New World Organization at one point instead of New World Order, which I thought was interesting. Bischoff did have a lot, and Vince needed that foil, and he really helped WWE, catapult into the next generation. Wu-Tang, what's one more thing? Who's on the ham radio, by the way? I just want to know. Chris, is that you that's on the ham radio? Okay. Wu-Tang, what was one more thing you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, you know what really I thought was interesting? That they wrote No Holds Barred in a hotel in 2 days.
It doesn't surprise me, though.
It was actually a decent movie.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed No Holds Barred. There are some, yes, the Dookie part. Yep, no question. That's dumb. Yeah, that's Vince McMahon.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, I remember waiting in line to go see it, and I can tell you this much: it was a packed house. I don't know. I'll watch No Holds
Barred once every couple of years, man. It's great.
Yeah, I do too. Every once in a while, I got to see Hogan, do his thing, jump. So yeah, to me that was, I would say that was a little more lighthearted in terms of the documentary and how they both kind of thought it was trash. But
that was pretty fun.
I thought that was interesting. Am I going to I have one more. I have another recommendation. Can I give a wrestling recommendation out?
Sure, why not?
I watched the first 2 seasons. It's on Netflix now. It was on Stars. It's called Heels.
Okay.
And if you haven't had a chance to catch it, Chris, you might not like it because, they're, it shows them being friends behind the scenes. But it really was.
If I see Roddy Piper shake Hulk Hogan's hand, I might lose my shit.
That's how I feel about when LeBron works out with everybody else. It's gross. I get that. But yeah, it was an awesome show, and it was 2 seasons deep, and now it's on. I watched like a couple episodes when it was on Stars. Not everyone has Stars, but now that's on Netflix. I think it's pretty universal. So, Heels, starring not Chris Pine, but a guy that looks like Chris Pine.
WWE fan Stephen Amell. He's been on
thanks.
WWE TV many times.
Yes.
Thank you, Rod. Yes.
I want to give my thoughts here, and then Rod, I'm going to go to you to end. I do want to get one word from you on the final episode. How would you describe it in one word? But my overall take of the documentary so far, and again, I'm about 3.5 in. I'm a little bit through the Attitude Era right now. Nothing new. I mean, there's a couple things here and there. Knew most of the things going in. I like when Vince gets a little bit, you can kind of see every now and then he gets a little bit introspective. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. Really would have liked to see more on the father relationship. Maybe they asked him that and they just didn't get anything, and that's fine. There's reasons stuff is in and stuff isn't. But so far, it's been a very solid documentary. I think, as far as I know, it's as accurate as it can be. I'm just hoping I find 1 or 2 more things I didn't know about as someone who's been around for a while. Rod, What is one word to describe the final episode? That better be your hand, Wu-Tang. One word to describe the final episode of Vince McMahon.
One word to describe the final episode of Vince McMahon would be mystery. Honestly, mystery. Mystery would be what I would say, right? We get to the point in episode 6 where so many themes are coming to a point where they seemingly are trying to put a big bow on it. And because of what I already talked about, and because of the fact that you can't be 100% certain that you got the true story from anybody, and because of a 2024 interview of somebody who we see throughout the documentary coming on and throwing the documentary under the bus, much in the similar way that Jimmy, you talked about Vince's statement himself. So episode 6 throws into mystery, but I believe the documentary does a great job of presenting all of the evidence it can, and you figured out for yourself what you want to figure out about Vince McMahon by the end of it. But I think mystery is a good way to describe it. But Jimmy, I want to say one other thing. Episode 4 is called Attitude. That's where you're going to get plenty of great nostalgic hits from all of the wild stuff that happened in the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s. Episode 5 is Family Business. And Jimmy, you're going to get a little bit more of Vince and his dad there that comes out through Shane and his dad. And I want to say to Shane O'Mac right now, buddy, I'm sorry. It's okay. It's not your fault. All right. Shane O'Mac comes off fabulously by the end of this documentary. You guys get ready for some great Shane O'Mac in 4, 5, and 6.
And with that, you've been listening to the Yeah We Know podcast, part of the More You Know's podcast network. You're in the ring with Jimmy, Chris, and Rod.
And Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang, you get the final word. Say anything you want about wrestling right now. The floor is yours.
More Chelsea Green training vignettes, Rocky style. That was the best thing in SmackDown last week. Rod, you have won me over on Chelsea Green.
Yeet and yeah.
Oh, we didn't even mention Jey Uso. Sorry, Jey Uso, but we had the Vince McMahon documentary.
Goodbye, net. Yeah.
Hi.